What's up, Journey of Shadows family? I am Courtney Kaiser, and we're talking a little bit more about self-talk today, and we're really going to just get up in there as I blind myself with this sunlight because it feels so good. I needed it today. It's been one of those days, so just give it to me, son. Hi, how are you? Okay, so let's get started. Self-talk. This is the hardest thing that people have with shadow work. It's the hardest element because it involves building our conscious awareness, our conscious part of our brain, becoming more aware, choosing to become more aware of our behavior, our thoughts, everything, which takes energy and patience and having the skills to withstand whatever comes up, whatever you're finding out, how dysregulated you get. Like, all of these things have elements, right, to how it affects our life. And that all depends based off of what our self-talk is like. And, you know, it really blows my mind how often people don't even know that they talk to themselves. We're always talking to ourselves, especially when we're being silent and we're not saying anything, we're saying something inside. So how you are perceiving what's around you, how you're talking about yourself to other people, how you are thinking about yourself in reference to that thing, how you're thinking about yourself in reference to anything, just about yourself in general, how you encourage or support yourself, how you gaslight yourself, how you abuse or manipulate yourself into choosing what the shadow wants you to do, which is unhelpful, rather than doing what is helpful because it makes you uncomfortable, brings up uncomfortable feelings, right? And what do I mean by this? Like, how we even know any of this is legit. If you look at Dr. Emoto's study, and there's many studies of water, just go on Google, look up studies of water where they have shown water is programmable. What we say, what we think, what we feel changes the crystalline structure of water. It literally programs in the memory of what you said to it or thought or did. If you ignored it, if you said, I hate you, it will change to form into whatever kind of energy that is. It's gonna look crazy and dark. If you say it's beautiful and I love you, it's gonna be like an amazing crystalline object, like sacred geometry. So it's important to know that when you speak to yourself, when you think about yourself, when you speak about yourself, you are programming the cells and the water and blood in your body. And that crystalline structure is going to reflect outward. Your body and health is going to show, your environment is going to show what you say. Hands down. Take a look at your life and let me know. You know, most people are going to say, and I still say this because it's true, but there's more to it. But you will hear often that shadow and self-talk, okay, or just self-talk in general, comes from what you were programmed with, okay? And what that means is what your environment of caregivers or parents, friends, how they spoke to you, treated you. So if you were raised in an abusive home or environment, you're going to speak abusively to yourself. If you will be more inclined to speak abusively to yourself, and that's going to be the area that's going to be the most challenging part for shadow work for you, is how to speak kindly to yourself. Okay? If you were raised by people or an environment that you received a lot of emotional neglect and just neglect in general, then you are going to naturally avoid or deny your feelings. If you had abusive parents that denied your experience or gaslight you all the time, you're going to also gaslight yourself, not trust yourself, and have a lot of doubt, right? So all of these things are true, yes. But then, there's another video I saw. It was like, oh, it's programmed in the cells in your body. Yes, the cells of your body, but also mainly the water, right? We're 70% water, if not more. We also have liters of blood in our body, which also contains memory, just like the water in our body. So all of that, we have so much coded memory in our body. And what you say, think, do, refer to is all going to be programmed in. It remembers. The body remembers the score, remember? It doesn't just mean trauma. You are traumatizing yourself all the time when you speak negatively and abusively to yourself. But people don't ever like to admit that. They're like, oh, well, I might be a little. I'm like, how do you talk to yourself about that? They're like, oh, pretty good. I'm like, so when do you encourage it? How do you encourage yourself? They're like, what do you mean? Like, okay. And people usually say, like, bitch, you better fucking do it. Like, they're just like really mean and aggressive, and like they use scare tactics, and like they're a dictator. Everyone sounds like a dictating, abusive parent that is emotionless to themselves a lot of times when they first started out in shadow work. Like, geez, would you talk to other people like that? They're like, hell no. I'm like, so why do you do it to yourself? They're like, well, I'm like, so what makes you different and not worth that same kind of behavior than everybody else? If you think that everybody deserves kindness, why would you all of the sudden not be included in that? That doesn't make any sense to me. And so we look at like, okay, so if you are included, let's look at that, right? Because this goes into inner child work. This goes into, well, the shadow work that I do is essentially like inner child work, because you actually get to meet your younger wounded shadow self that's causing you problems in this specific situation, so that you know exactly who you're talking to, and you know exactly how your words affect him or her or them. They're individual people, wounded, like a fragment of a memory within you that gets activated, like a program selected based off of what you tell it mentally and how you make it feel. Then it takes over, it takes a steering wheel and drives for you, right? This is why shadow work is so important, but this is why self-talk is so important, because not only is it, in the memory of your body, but then it's also like reflected in your body, your behavior, in yourself, in your growth, in your relationships, environment. It's all going to reflect that, right? If you're happy, if all of these things, right? How you speak to yourself is going to really depend on how you do in this work. If your shadow work becomes really challenging and strung out, long, drawn out for long periods of time, you're focused on one shadow, it's the self-talk. There's no reason it should take years to work with one shadow. Now, if it's your shadow of just like anger in general, guess what? You're always gonna have that one. That one's not gonna leave, right? But it's not about shaming yourself with what you feel in shadow work. It's not about judging yourself based off what you feel. It's not about being right and them being wrong. It's not about any of that. It's about how can you, with or without any experience, prior knowledge, prior exposure to any kind of loving, nurturing, accepting, empathetically, emotionally intelligent, attuned individual caretaker. A lot of people have never had that. Even if you had a good mom or dad, right? If you were lucky enough to have that, they still weren't perfect, right? No one is perfect, and we're not blaming parents, right? They have their stuff with a completely different generational stuff that got passed down. They're the productivity generation, okay? We're the healing generation. We have to heal what all the generations before us for thousands of years have been oppressed to heal themselves and disconnected from themselves. We have the opportunity to reconnect with ourselves and learn how to love ourselves in the truest, most authentic, beautiful, expansive ways if we just move past the fear of being vulnerable with ourselves. Move past the fear of maybe crying because you really needed to hear that. Or maybe it's crying because it feels really good. Maybe makes you sad, and that's okay, but also still feels really good. These are all things that we want to be aware of. We want to know what's blocking me from getting there. Why can I not disconnect, or why can I not connect to this? Right? And clients of mine who don't have experience, and granted, I had more experience maybe than others, but at the same time, I still had to come up with my own statements. Not everything I had experienced before in terms of that, in terms of the level of support that I needed, not what was given, right? It's probably going to be different for everybody than what you actually received as a kid. So no, like some people might have more experience than others, but nobody has the perfect level of experience, okay? So we're all learning, and if you find yourself saying like, I've never experienced that, I don't know what that is, that's an excuse. Sorry. You've seen movies, you've seen TV, you've been around people enough in your life and their families to see some example of a parent talking to their kid in a way where you were like, wow. I'm blown away. Wow. Moms talk to you like that? Like there's something it didn't happen to you, so you just don't think you know. But you do. You can literally look on the internet for plenty of examples and you can find something. Guarantee you. Okay? Or you knew somebody's mom who always made you feel welcome, safe, at home, something. There's someone out there. And if there's not, make it up. What would be your most supportive, loving, kind, safe, empathetic caretaker? What would that sound like, look like? This is where you really get to explore and dream, and it be no matter what it is. But that's also the area where people shut down, because I asked them, what would you want? I don't know. So that's something to think about. Like, that goes back to part of the self-talk, right? Because people usually think the self-talk comes in, that's asking for too much. You'll never get that. You're not worth that. Nobody fucking cares. Stuff like that, which will keep you from actually knowing or going after the answers that you're looking for. Trying to figure out what statements you're gonna make. It's gonna block you because that's shadow blocking you. right? All of those other statements that are negative, anything that is negative, lacking emotional attunement or empathy, anything that is not in your highest and greatest good and the highest good of others is shadow. If you don't know why you're doing something, if you're very emotional while doing something, if you have this habit or pattern and you don't understand why you're doing it, all of these things are shadow, okay? And I heard someone else say like, oh, to go back to my point, sorry, this is what happens, I digress. But with what I would add to what that person was saying, where you get these versions of your self-talk. It's like our child self, our innocent, intuitive self, our higher intuition is really loud when we're young. And then our parents' voices and those around us that we hear more often take their place and become very loud, right? Whatever we listen to becomes louder. And so if your parents yelled a lot, said whatever, controlling, you're gonna hear that voice more than your intuition. Okay, all of that stuff is true. But what he's not aware of or thinking about is that there's also a very real possibility that this stuff doesn't even come from you. It came from your ancestors or from a past life that you don't remember and you don't have any connection or recollection of. Like no connection to it whatsoever. But yet it's something you really struggle with and you can't find it in your family. Probably past life. If you can see it in your family, probably ancestral. And so then we would go in and do a meditation, figure out what are these things that you are needing to hear from yourself to provide for yourself so that you can heal this for yourself and for your ancestors, to free yourself from that pattern. But again, it's like, even though you do that, it's still a constant daily process of helping yourself become aware, adjusting, integrating, and bringing that online. It's active conscious work, and that's why it can be exhausting. It can be a lot at first, and then you get in the hang of it and it becomes your new behavior, and then you don't have to think about it so much. But anything new as an adult, it just takes more effort, right? And that used to be the excuse of why people used to not do it, because they didn't want to put in the effort, right? Life used to be really hard back in the day. It was a lot of hard manual labor and stuff, to where they would say, like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Granted, they were talking about dogs, but that reflected people too. But it's because I think they were just so fucking worn out from working their life away that they wanted to do nothing but be grumpy old people and be stuck in their ways and be angry with life because they wasted it doing X, Y, and Z. Feeling however they felt with whatever trauma and emotions they had that they didn't heal. So it's like, yeah, can you imagine just trying to look at that stuff if you never had? It's a lot. So, you know, just having some grace with our family members, even if they were not the best. What we can say is that everybody did their best with the information, tools, skills, wisdom, experiences that they came into this life with. And besides that, it's all meant to be a lesson for us in how we can better ourselves, because everyone and everything is a reflection of us, giving us tools and direction of where to go in our work. And so self-talk is like, that's something I really hone in and focus on, because that is the majority of shadow work. People think shadow work is all about exploring what's hidden underneath. It's like, yes, but with my meditation, we can do that really easily. We don't have to spend weeks or months or years exploring the same situations to find these answers that may not even truly be the answers. It's only what you can consciously have access to, because the answers most likely that you're seeking you don't know consciously. They're hidden in your subconscious or shadow mind. So that's where most of your self-talk lives, is in your subconscious mind, in your shadow. It's hidden from you. Only sometimes are we conscious and aware of what we're saying to ourselves, but it's like something has to happen. We're like, oh, okay, I heard that. And how we can know one way that our self-talk is kind of gone off the rails, but we're not fully aware of what we're saying yet. You will know based off of the physical sensations in your body, but also where your emotions at. If you, out of nowhere, with no triggering event or anything like that that upset you, if all of a sudden you are irritated, pissed off, crying, anything that's intense out of nowhere, your self-talk is telling you something about a situation or about yourself that's making you very upset and triggered. So you can guarantee that there is a self-talk thing happening that's not helpful. So depending on what that is, what emotions are coming up, it's important to know what you're needing to hear that helps with those emotions. That's where the knowing where that comes from is helpful, because then you can address those specific needs, right? So when you don't have someone like me, it's gonna take you a while to figure out what that is, but you can really look at like, okay, what emotions affect me where? Where do I feel the physical sensations of anger? And like be going through that in your body. If you feel angry the next time, like, all right, where do I feel it? I'm not suggesting like make yourself mad or like make yourself have all of these X, Y, and Z feelings, emotions, triggering yourself to experiment. But maybe if you know how to ground and cope and you feel comfortable or safe doing that, then I would suggest that. If not, don't do that. Just in the moment, in real time, see if these emotions pop up. But knowing, okay, if you can identify where do you feel these emotions in your body, what are the types of sensations it gives? Okay, maybe anger, I get tingling sensations in my arms, my fists start to clench, my whole body is tense, I start to get hot and red and super anxious and like I want to spew and scream and all the things. Okay. All right, what do you do when you're sad? It's like, so you can connect to all the things. It's like, all right, and then what did we find out that we are needing to hear? What is the emotion, right, going on with that? It's like, okay, well, when I'm angry, it's like I need space to be able to release it in a healthy, safe way through sacred rage so that I can then actually see truth and look at what's bothering me and why. If I'm really sad, I need to be told from myself, you are worthy, you are enough. Doesn't matter what happened, what whoever said, like it's gonna depend on what I said, because I try to speak to myself as real and honestly as I can, most authentically as I possibly can. I try not to just say, you are enough. Like, unless that's something very specific that I need to hear, but like the statements that you read online and stuff, I incorporate that with real shit. Okay, so say I like calm down from being angry, or maybe I'm still angry and I haven't calmed myself down yet. Let's do that. And so I would say something like, I'm so angry right now. Like, I just want to scream. I'm gonna help you scream and release this. We're gonna get this out and then we're gonna talk about what upset us. Okay? Like, I'm here for you. Just read it out. Just to let her know that I'm here and I'm helping her. So everything is intentional. She hears me, she knows. And then afterwards, like, okay, I can feel what that was about. I know how that might have made you feel. Or I can feel how it made you feel, right? I'm so sorry that that hurt you in that way. I can feel that. It makes me sad too, and I know that that's not how they meant it. And you are worthy. And if they don't see you worth, they're not worth your time. It's okay. Just holding her and comforting her, right? You don't have to be all fake and be like, oh, I just love you so much, and everything's okay. Like, unless you need to hear that, like, we're gonna be okay. I'm here with you, right? How old your shadow is also gonna depend on your self-talk, right? If you're talking to a toddler, you're not gonna be using words except for like, shh, 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 it's okay. And like rocking yourself and like maybe some bouncing to soothe your nervous system, okay? More than likely you still need to have a parasympathetic nerve. You more than likely have an underdeveloped parasympathetic nervous system. And so skin contact and any kind of holding of you like this is going to be really helpful, just in general. But it might also, like, my teenage self thought she was really cool, but she was also very rebellious and liked to cuss a lot. So I would probably cuss more if I was talking to my teenage self. And I would relate and use that dislike of authority to my advantage. I would play to her personality so that she understands me, because I'm trying to be her friend. I'm trying to help her. I'm not trying to do something that's, bad for her. I'm trying to, lure her in to help herself, to allow me to help her, okay? When she doesn't want help. Trust and believe she doesn't want help. But yeah, so self-talk can look many different ways, but again, it goes back to, it can be many different things. It doesn't just have to be from this life. And sometimes when you are not able to connect it and you're not able to see the shadow, or not the shadow, but the self-talk that is there that could be upsetting you or affecting you, then it's definitely still happening and it's under the surface that you're gonna need help with uncovering if you can't find it yourself, and that's okay. We need help in this work, in shadow work specifically, but especially in self-talk. Like, it's such a complex topic only because we have literally been encouraged by society to not speak to ourselves. That's fucking weird. That's what weird kids do. And even though it used to be W-Y-R-D, weird as in the wise, creators of fate, wielding one's fate. Makes sense, right? That those would be those people. But I'm suggesting that everybody talk to themselves out loud. That's something, I don't know if other professionals might tell you to do that, but in shadow work, 100% makes a difference. If you stay internal versus external, if you start speaking out loud to your shadows, things are gonna start healing faster. You're gonna start feeling grounded sooner. You're gonna start feeling a lot safer with yourself sooner. You can say all you want to your shadows, but if you don't help yourself ground and cope and like actually help yourself, and you keep putting yourself in situations that are making your life harder, then your self-talk and shadow work is going to be really challenging. And I think this is where the shadow of people's self-sabotage comes in, where they don't help themselves. They say they want something, but they don't they're not signing up for doing all of the work. They don't realize that involves all these other things. And so, yeah, they just think like, oh, I can do this one thing and everything is healed. And it's like, no, this is a process. And there might be times where it's like, okay, I haven't, had this shadow come up with this kind of self-talk for a while. And then all of a sudden, something happens that triggers that shadow to come out again. And you're like, wait, what happened? I thought I healed this. It's like, you didn't, because there was something else that needed to be healed, right? There's layers and layers to this. And so in figuring out your self-talk, it really is the thing that one must fine tune to see like, what is the truth that I need to hear? Whether I think that's the truth or not, what feels like the truth. Because what your mind thinks you need to hear is not what you actually need to hear. Most people are so disconnected from their heart space that they think logically, and that's when they get into tough love. So the more you get into your feeling and get ushy and gushy with yourself, the more success you're going to have in this work and just in your life in general. Because when at the end of the day, you need support from yourself, doesn't matter if you have support from anybody else. You support you, and that will create the life that you want. If it's in your highest good and the highest good of all, right? We're not emotionless beings that don't care about how other people feel and are affected, but knowing that you can give what you need from others to yourself. And when you find that within yourself and you can provide that for yourself, everything else falls into place. And so anytime there's any kind of block in your shadow work, it will always go back to your self-talk. And I don't mean to bring all of this up in a way, or to say things in a way that will discourage you, because although I say that it is going to be the hard spot for you, it is not impossible, and it is not too difficult for anyone to accomplish or try. And even though I say it may be challenging, it may not be, because if you're somebody who really wants this and you're willing to do the work, it may go by a lot faster and smoother than I could ever imagine, right? And because we're in the age of Aquarius, things are going to be moving and creating and manifesting at alarming rates. So if you get your mind right and you get your self-talk in the space where you want it to be, that is in alignment with what the life you're wanting to create, and you get your self-talk in there, and then all of a sudden all of this life and beauty and expansion and abundance starts happening. Holy cow. Like that's why we're here, right? We all want to tap into that abundance that we all deserve, right? And it all starts in here. You can't have one without the other. You need both to receive it. You have to know you're worthy. You have to know that it already is yours, that you don't even have to do anything to receive it, that just by existing, you are worthy and enough to receive everything you want under the sun. That's when true abundance comes to you, and that's when love and everything starts attracting to you. And that doesn't mean like, oh, your life's gonna be sunshine and rainbows, because if you haven't made up your mind about certain things, your shadows are gonna then be challenged in those aspects, especially in your self-talk of like, okay, well, here, we're gonna give you this thing, but we see you haven't finished this lesson yet, so we're gonna make you wait and see how you are with patience first. And then we're gonna see, oh, how are you with community? How are you do you have shadows of jealousy? It's just like, it's stripping away all of the lies, all of the things that aren't you. It clearly starts to be shown, and we can see it as like, oh, this is fucking annoying. I'm exhausted. I don't want to do this anymore. Like another thing. Or we can take our time with things and move at the pace that works for us, that we're comfortable with, and finally get to these spaces where we want to be, which is incredible, right? Like, that's what everybody wants. And you can get that through self-talk. So I hope that answered some questions for you guys, or just filled you in with a little bit more understanding of self-talk. I think I forgot to say, I wanted to touch on before I go, what I would even say to my shadow self that was mad or angry. And I think first and foremost, that we have been shadow programmed to do is to gaslight our anger and our rage, to say, I'm not angry, it's not okay to be angry. Don't yell, don't do, like, obviously we don't want to be yelling at people and be abusive, but like, yeah, you're allowed to yell and scream. Release that shit. Like, I don't shame my shadow for making me feel uncontrollable rage. But my whole life I did. I shame myself because society told me it's not okay, and people around me said it's not okay because I displayed it in a really toxic, negative way, right? And that's how most of us have our experiences, because no one ever taught us how to deal with anger, but it is some of the most powerful alchemical expression of emotion, and can be used and channeled in some of the most magical, powerful ways to amplify what we are wanting and creating. Because it allows us, when we feel anger and rage and we express it in a healthy, safe, private way, and allow ourselves to get to the truth of it, moving through the anger, past the anger, to the truth, then, like, wow, it's incredible, right? So it's like encouraging ourselves to go there, to release that rage, to scream, right? That's where my self-talk is. It's like, oh, wow, I feel rageful. Okay, yep. We're gonna go outside and we are going to get some sticks and we're going to scream our head off and release this. I got you. That's what I say. I try not to connect to a narrative, although I can't say that I do it perfect every time, but I try not to. I'm just like pumping myself up. I'm like, okay, we're doing this, trying to stay focused and in that energy. And I'm like, all right, when we're releasing, I try to get her to not connect to that story because she wants to, right? I allow her to do it for a little bit, but then I start to just focus on sending that anger, that rage down into the earth to be transmuted into pure potential, being burned by the inner sun, right? The molten core. So looking at even your self-talk of how you support yourself for the emotions that you feel. Do you gaslight, dismiss, avoid, or bully, or abuse yourself for feeling things? If you feel sad about something, your feelings are hurt, do you make yourself feel bad? Do you call yourself a pussy? Do you call yourself like pathetic or lame or whatever? Like, looking at like, how do you really talk to yourself? And is it helpful? How does it make you feel? If you close your eyes and think about it, feeling into, paying attention to the sensations in your body as you say these things that you're discovering, and how you talk to yourself about or support yourself in these emotions, how does that make you feel, right? Is it a comfortable physical sensation? Does it feel good? Or is it really discomforting? Or is it uncomfortable and makes you feel upset? Makes you feel anxious? Like, what is it? That'll give you a really clear indication of like, okay, this is not helpful. That I don't show up for myself in that way. But that's, again, we don't want to go into negative self-talk about what we are not doing. That's the other thing that we've been programmed to do, is like, because we've been raised and programmed, conditioned in an environment that is school-based, where we have sports, it's competition, it's we have records and placements and things our whole life. So we are raised to be comparative and competitive, not focusing on ourselves, focusing on attaining more to beat other people, right? So they have taught us to foster our ego and not what's true. And ego is shadow, okay? It's 100% shadow. That's something we've created from living our life of, through all the trauma and experiences, to have this persona of ego, okay? Which is, maybe there's some conscious aspects in there, but doubtful, very doubtful, right? And, well, there might be things you're consciously aware of that you. So knowing there is a shadow of self-talk that's going to come up in terms of competition. So you're either going to hear like that really tough teacher, coach, parent that gave you a lot of tough love and told you that's how you get things done, or made you believe that's how you get things done. That's going to come online. And also just trying to dismiss your feelings. So the biggest tip I can give you about this is, no matter what you feel, allow yourself to feel it. It's okay if you end up gaslighting yourself and dismissing it. If you can catch that as soon as you can and address that, be like, oop, I did that, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna feel it. I saw that. I just dismissed it and I'm sorry. What is that about? I'm gonna allow myself to feel it without judging. Just feel it. It's okay. Every emotion you feel is okay. That's why we have them. We wouldn't have them if it wasn't okay. It's just, what do we do with it? Those are the lessons. That's the shadow work. What do we do with it? How do we integrate and evolve that into being a higher conscious response and interaction, rather than one from shadow, right? So that we can be the highest conscious beings that we can be, instead of walking around in shadow all the time. And I like to tell people, it feels like we've been under a spell for thousands of years that we are just now coming out of and beginning to remember, to wake up, to remember our power, that there's more going on than just this material, physical reality that we believe is very tangible and real, but isn't. I digress again, guys. Get used to it. Okay. Until next time, bye.